Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Squared Circle Society Live. I am Fleshman Dan, joined by producer Todd.
Greetings.
How goes it, producer Todd?
I don't know. It's one of those days.
It's a busy day. I'm been packing in between. Got 2 live shows tonight. We got starting here with Squared Circle Society, and immediately after, pretty much, we're going to be going into Flesh Wound Horror Live. So hopefully you won't get tired of us.
And rumor has it we'll have the whole team for tonight's Flesh Wound Horror.
All the Ghostbusters. Busting makes
even Winston Zeddemore.
That's racist. Are you really? Hugs has to be Winston?
I was referring to Kruger. Well, now you who's a racist.
That's bullshit, Todd. You know what you were thinking there.
Absolutely.
That's fine. Just call him Winston from now on, Todd. You might as well just go full racist, but that's okay.
I'm just going to do at the top of the next show. He's going to be like, what the hell's going
changes ID on the screen. But yeah, no, we're talking wrestling. We're talking horror later. Yeah, we got 2 dark sides of the ring. Spoiler alert, nobody gets their balls shaved this week, but you never know. Could have happened.
It was the 80s. Everyone was shaving. I don't know.
They were
shaving everything then.
Beefcake's looking smooth. You never know. I don't know what his relationship with his mom was like, but I'm going to say it could have happened.
I don't know. He doesn't seem on the buff level.
So we kicked things off with the dark side of the ring episode. Terry Gordy, the final flight of the Freebird. So Terry Gordy, history with him, Todd. I mean, I guess you wouldn't have probably watched as much of the very beginning of his career, but when did you first discover him?
Honestly, because a lot of the stuff from World Class I didn't see till much later.
Yeah.
I might have even seen his ECW match first. So,
ooh.
Well, I'm trying to remember. You know what? I'm sure I saw King of the Death match first, but I always forget he's in that. Like the documentary reminded me, because I mean, all the hype goes to the main event. But yeah, I never. So I'm gonna go with one of those. It wasn't in the original run. I mean, even though I'm older, I wasn't. It was a lot harder to keep up unless you had the old school big dish back then.
Yeah. It was interesting because I always sort of through different shoot interviews knew him as sort of the big, goofy, not too bright guy. It was kind of how he was always portrayed, but sweet, nice guy, just, kind of a goober, I guess. And so there was quite a bit as far as
you can say that.
Nothing wrong with that, Todd.
All right. He was a little Festus. We get it.
Yeah, okay. But kind of, just sweet guy, got into wrestling when he was 14. Wrestling on TV at 14, which is not a good idea. I feel like that's just,
we didn't have those pesky laws back then. It was fine.
Yeah. Tuck your chin, kid. You're fine. don't cry in my ring. But yeah, we get his son Ray Gordy, who you alluded to, and his tag team with Festus and of course Slam Master Jay, and I don't know why that didn't catch on, but it just didn't. But yeah, Jesse and Festus had a nice little run there.
Did they ever mention it back then? I don't remember them mentioning it on TV ever.
They got to that point where they made a really big deal for a while about being second or third generation. Then they just kind of dropped it.
They went the other way hard. They were hiding that shit after that.
Yeah. I think the novelty just kind of wore off. It's like, okay, we've had a lot of guys' kids now, unless you're like a Ric Flair or something where it's kind of impossible.
They've done it to ones that I would consider impossible, like a Steiner.
Oh yeah,
a Henning. I'm just saying, there's examples. They just like even the Braun ones. Like, I'm so surprised.
I kind of am too, and I wonder, being that we do have Braun Strowman, if he is going to become something Steiner when he gets called up to the main.
Yeah, can't have two Brauns unless they go
Well,
back to the one name gimmick.
we're not in that Vince era though anymore, so I don't know. They might just say fuck it,
But
it's spelled different.
for marketing, that is still you don't want a bunch of guys with
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But
that's
yeah,
a little different than just changing the names to change the names like they were.
it's hard to know whether to take advantage of that last name though, because sometimes it makes it impossible. David Flair, not fantastic, but he learned how to wrestle. He could have a decent match towards the end of his career, but that Flair name just was never ever going to hit that level. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like Terry Gordy was that titan necessarily that everybody knew at that point.
I'm not even I'm not even complaining that they didn't use the name, but I like it at least acknowledged, especially if you're giving a guy's history and then you flat out ignore it. But we're getting completely off topic.
It's kind of on topic because his daughter Miranda works the indies, and she talked about the pressure to be as good as him, because in ring Terry Gordy was amazing.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of run that down. I was always a huge fan. I don't know if the Von Erich feud was when I first kind of noticed, but I remember going back, just being a big fan of tag team wrestling, and that feud was as hot as anything in the history of wrestling. Like, it was red fucking hot. And just, it's really cool to go back and watch a lot of it because it holds up so well. And he was the enforcer of the Freebirds. Like, it was just that perfect unit. Everybody had that certain piece to the puzzle that just made them one of the all-time great acts. They talk about them being arguably the first like cool heels that were starting to get
It's
cheered.
hard to argue that.
Some of the first, we were getting past that say your prayers, take your vitamins kind of era where, I just want to cheer for the cool fucking dude that's moonwalking all over the place. So Jim Cornette talks about first meeting him when he was 16, already a couple of years in the business, which is wild. And meeting Michael Hayes, the formation of the Fabulous Freebirds, getting paired up with Buddy Roberts in Mid-South Wrestling by Bill Watts, and once Hayes and Gordy went over there. And yeah, it spends a pretty decent time running down, the Freebird stuff there a little bit, establishing his spot in wrestling, which was huge at that point, because again, the WCCW run there was just, if you were alive at the time, and a lot of it I watched a little bit later, but I caught it when I was a little kid, so it wasn't that far removed from it. And just that it was just one of the coolest things going in wrestling. And I used to watch everything I could get my hands on, tapes from anybody I could get tapes from. And he made a huge impression early on. And you almost forget that the Freebirds did have that WWF run that lasted like a week or two. When Terry Gordy actually passes out in a meeting with Vince
that wasn't a run, that was a crawl.
That you can kind of see. I don't know that there was really much of a window for Vince to really bring him back again, which he did. He did bring him back, but it's amazing that he did. When he did, after passing out in a meeting, because Vince back then, like, that felt like that would be something that you could not overcome. But he did get a run that I almost forget about because it was very unmemorable.
I think that can go either way with Vince. He could be like, ha ha, have a hard night, pal. You know, he could think it's, you know, I feel like that could go either way.
Just waits for him to pass out and just takes his shit on his head.
Puts his balls straight on his head.
Pat, take a picture.
No diddy.
He ain't gonna leave for WCW. Yeah, I know, Todd. You're just itching. You gotta talk Diddy, but we will on the next show.
Well, I can't say
so
replaced. That'll be canceled.
They run down when he goes to Japan. Now that's where you get a lot of great shit. If you haven't gone back and watched Terry Gordy's Japan stuff, get to it. I mean, Japan at the time loved giant American monsters. This guy was so tough. He had 2 blown ACLs and was still working. I would not think that would be possible. They kind of run. Very strange. Didn't know this. Richard Simmons he contacted, who helped him drop some weight. I thought that bit was really funny. Like I said, some of this, the behind the scenes stuff, I did not realize. They do talk a little bit about the Gordy Misawa match in Japan, which is a stone cold classic. That one you really owe it to yourself to go watch, because they just, man. We get into the Miracle Violence Connection tag team with Dr. Death, 2 of the most tough dudes ever to step foot in a wrestling ring. And kind of Jimmy Garvin coming in especially while Gordy was touring Japan at the same time, and just this insane schedule that he was working, because those matches in Japan were more physical than anything in the world of wrestling at the time, and his schedule just wild. It all kind of falls apart for him when he overdoses. There's that story about him overdosing on a plane and Dr. Death slapping him to get him to wake up, and him ending up in a coma for 2 days. And I was aware of that. Now, I guess I kind of forgot some of this, just how much he lost as far as his motor skills and memory. This is kind of where this episode paints a really sad picture, where he makes this miracle comeback, but it's like Jim Cornette said, he could do the moves, but it's just that spark, that personality was just kind of gone. And you could tell another one that still kind of hurts Jim Cornette, obviously. Close to the guy.
Yeah, we talked about how his, we perceived him at the beginning just kind of like the big dumb guy. I think a lot of that comes from like the stuff post injury, because like if you see the stuff from before, it's like they say, it's like a different guy. It's just crazy. I mean,
yeah, it's just it's sad what a head injury can do. It wasn't it for him, because again, like he did have that IWA King of the Death match tournament, the match with Cactus Jack, which came off really well. So he still kind of had some moments, but some of the footage, and I was vaguely aware of this as a terrible shoot interview, and I know I saw footage from it at the very least a long time ago, but that 1998 RF video shoot interview he did, where like he could not focus on anything, it was just a disaster.
And fuck RF video. We at Flesh Wound do not support him or Eddie. I can't even say the P word, huh? But that cocksucker, fuck him and fuck RF video. Thank you. That was a public service announcement. And if you do business with them, fuck you too.
There you go. So yeah, that part was really sad. I mean, he's trying to make money for his family, and it just, I don't know, it put him in such a bad position. Cliff Booth, he legit looked like an old school voodoo zombie. He did. Man. Yeah, it's like the lights were on, but nobody was kind of at home. And that kind of made me sad. I kind of feel like you get an interview like that, maybe just say, we got to call it, because I can't recall the whole thing, but it was pretty much like that through the whole
Well,
interview.
I'm not going to depend on Rob Feinstein to have the best judgment on a situation. So once
Yeah,
again, fuck him and fuck his company and anyone who works with him.
there you go. That's the flesh wound position on RF video. Fuck him right in the ass.
Well, as long as they're 18, that's the key thing.
There you go. So Michael Hayes, the comeback that I almost forget, because I was watching it and I was like, oh wait, he did come back, didn't he? He was the executioner.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, there's so many like brief runs like that I kind of.
I think the only reason I really remember that is the Jax 3-pack. Because there was a figure. Right, yeah. I have that image of that because I almost picked that up so many times. I was like, the only figure that was exclusive was the Executioner, and I didn't really. I was fine with it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wish I had it now.
It's funny that I forget about it too. I guess I just don't associate Terry Gordy. Like, I knew it was him back when it was going on, because again, I had seen all that other stuff, and you can tell Terry Gordy's distinct.
I'm glad, because I've always wondered why he wasn't. Why would they cover up Terry Gordy? That was always the thing, and they pretty much explained it.
Yeah,
right. They were basically doing a favor.
Yeah, and he works with Undertaker. I don't remember the match being particularly awful or anything, but again, it's that tail end right before we start getting a little more edgy, and very kind of sad. And there's that story about him asking an old lady for extra pills on the plane. Yeah. Then you kind of, unfortunately, this episode, you get to that typical end for so many guys, goes to the indies, and not entirely depressing, though. They said even Ray Gordy talks about, as he was winding down, he really got to know his dad for the first time. And
I feel sorry for his kids.
I do, especially Ray Gordy was going to team with them. It was like he couldn't make that date or something. And hard to believe a guy made that kind of an impact and was around for as long as he was, and he was only 40.
I know. Like, he started at 14, but like even the Mick Foley stuff, like he was talking about, I'm like, man, when he was at the convention, and
that's scene that I've seen a lot. I hope it's one of the worst things too, because you're like looking and it's like there's nobody.
It's say all you want about Virgil, or now you probably won't, but you have a lifelong memory and a story you can tell because of your interaction with Virgil.
I do. So
that's what you paid for, Dan.
I always
but you still got by Virgil. I'm just gonna keep calling you.
That's fine. Virgil gets the win, but my wallet will just do the job there eternally. But sometimes you do go to those things, especially when I was kind of going to different indie shows and helping out and trying to train. Like, I'd see guys sometimes that would set up, because there was some convention / shows kind of things that they would do back then, and you'd see that guy that kind of came like before the Attitude Era wave, and in some cases at that point still maybe a little bit before the boom in the 80s, and there was like nobody. It's just like they were forgotten, and that was like the saddest shit to have to see. So go watch some classic wrestling, some of these guys that are still around. If you see them at a show, that's how they make their living. And it's nice to see some of these guys not having to take the bumps. So everything's expensive at conventions nowadays, but at least if you go to see a wrestler,
expensive everywhere today.
Everything, it is. I will say with wrestlers, if you can get an autograph, get it at a wrestling show, it's always going to be cheaper
than a convention.
Yeah, a regular convention, they upcharge just like everybody.
I've never been to a wrestling convention, so
I'm not talking a wrestling convention though. Like
Oh, like a
Monster
resub?
Mania,
Yeah.
all
The
these cons.
conventions we get in LA, they don't really mingle like that. It's like,
Mhm.
I've never like, unless it's like a Roddy Piper, I've never seen like a wrestler at any of the conventions
No,
I've been.
I've met like the Rock and Roll Express, I think was Monster
Mm.
Mania. A lot of them will always just bring in these.
Yeah, I know. I see that a lot on the East. They do a lot of like just pop culture people. They bring other. It's not just like
Yeah,
for.
Chiller does
But I
that.
think LA,
All the
it's a
big.
little different because you could run into those people. So
Yeah.
what it's less of a thrill.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. But in closing, sad, but I'm glad he got to hang out with his family a little bit more at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's as much as I don't want it's like this felt like we're back to Dark Side of the Ring. It sucks for, Terry Gordy and the family, but it didn't feel like a Tales from the Territory episode to me. This felt like a true
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Ring.
It's kind of a shame we couldn't hear from Michael Hayes, but
Yeah.
I think you can kind of feel after that Ric Flair, Tommy Dreamer stuff, there's a lot that just won't talk to him now. So,
Yeah. Cornette don't care, so if they twist his words, he'll just rant about it for a couple shows.
I feel like Cornette's probably just about at that point where he's just like, fuck it all. Like, I'm not going back.
I think he's always, but I also think he chooses his words very carefully. He's not one just to say something and regret it right out. I feel like he carefully chooses what he's going to say.
Yeah. I've said it before, and it would be totally out of the box, but can you imagine the AEW stuff they were doing with Dan Lambert if they brought Cornette in?
Oh,
And if they were smart, they would fucking do it, because imagine that heat that he would draw with that audience.
Well, I mean, they were using his exact verbiage in that stuff, so it was Cornette getting that heat. So.
Dan Lambert was Jim Cornette, and he was a good heel. I'm not taking anything away from him, but you bring Cornette. Cornette fucking pops one of the Young Bucks with his fucking.
I will tell you, I will actually watch it, but you know what? It's just going to be a ripoff again. Because ECW did it first, and they did it way better than AEW could ever execute that.
They would, but if they let like Cornette off the leash to a certain degree and say what he really
That's the problem, though. Everyone's gonna get a fucking pussy hurt. You can't say what you, especially in AEW. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but again, they got to branch out and get other people. They're not going to stop watching.
Their audience will fucking cry because their pussy's hurt. It's not even they will.
Yeah, that's true. They are made of paper.
But you know what? This is pro wrestling. If you don't get fucking mad at the heels, you're a
who do you?
I had to clean that up.
Who do you put Cornette with? That would be the question. Like, who do you kind of?
You fucking bring in fucking your Velvet fucking NXT guy that you love so hard.
Velveteen Dream? How does he fit with Cornette?
Because they're gonna hate him too. They're gonna want to get.
So you just want like the Avengers of fuckery, basically.
Dan, you get your wish. Here's Joey Ryan.
Well, Jim Cornette hates Joey Ryan.
Like it. Squash to be. You know what they don't hate? Green.
You could do like Jim.
I want Jim Cornette assisting the dick flip.
You have like Jim Cornette like just like healed him. Now he's like just an old-fashioned like grappler. You could do something like that.
Yeah, that would be actually pretty fun. Okay, but I don't want a fantasy book.
You flippy piece of shit. All right. Moving on to our next Dark Side of the Ring, which is Saving Face, the Brutus Beefcake story. So Brutus the Barber Beefcake, I believe, was a childhood favorite of yours, wasn't he?
You actually remember that? Yeah. Okay. I was going to bring it up, but yeah.
One that connected with you. Yeah. So when did you first discover him? You're older, so you probably watched pretty much most of his run.
Yeah. When he was with Valentine. That's like my like when I started watching, they were already an established team. One of my first wrestling figures is the I think I have the little and the big one. You know the LJNs, they had the big ones, and they also had the little bendy ones.
Yeah.
I think I have them. I know I have the little one. I think I have them in both. And I actually tried to find it today, but my day was hectic. There was 2 banners that WWE made. There was Warrior, fuck the Warrior, and there was Beefcake. That's the one I got. So I also have a Hacksaw 2x4, even though I hate him, or I did then. He was like, fuck this guy.
You still hate like the propaganda wrestlers? So did you hate Slaughter?
Yeah. Even when I wasn't supposed to.
You just hated America, like even then. You were the Iron Tide, even back
I was
in
like,
the 80s.
come on, Tatanka. Fuck these white people up.
Well, Tatanka never really feuded with them. I mean, well, he turned heel later, but he wasn't like the evil foreign heel though, really. Like,
but even like going back, like, yeah, they were heels then, but I really did. I think. And it's funny because Beefcake wasn't as good. I mean, Beefcake obviously was never great. He was a character, but I mean,
he's body, yeah.
But yeah, as a kid, the haircutting and stuff, all that was The theme, I love. That's like 80s WWE music.
Yeah.
If you watched our reel today, that's the one I used because it was perfect. But
I can't say who it is, but I'll tell. It's not really a Beefcake story, but he was next to this person at a convention, and it was hilarious. The other wrestler was bitching about like a rat that came up to his room but then fell asleep. And he was mad. just listening to these like rants were hilarious. And I've met Beefcake before. He's one of the more aggressive people if it's in a convention setting, like as far as like coming up or waving you down. Never, but always cool. Like if you had a conversation with him or something.
I have a question though. Did he have a photo of every gimmick?
Brutus Beefcake obviously was the big one. I know he had a disciple. I never. Because
I would have been the dick. Oh, you don't have fucking the booty man. I'm out.
I feel like I remember him having a Zodiac.
I remember the booty man being over. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Booty Man and Kimberly Page.
The Booty Babe, yes.
The Booty Babe, yeah. They had a little bit of a run there. That's everything was still cheesy.
That was the first gimmick they gave him in WCW. I felt was like it worked. Even more like Disciple, whatever. It was
we'll get there because we'll go. But so we kind of kick it off. They talk about the lifelong friendship that he had with Hogan, which wasn't gimmicked. I mean, that was real. Like they kind of broke in together. They knew each other, lived just like 8 blocks away when they were growing up, and those guys were legit like best friends. And so it's pretty funny. We focus a lot on his current wife, Missy Leslie, who kind of fell in love with them on TV and then snuck backstage, which would not go over too well if you were a dude. I think our old friend Jason Robb had a pretty funny story about doing it, and Bam Bam Bigelow almost punting him in the face. But she met him sneaking backstage in 1986, and they reconnected later through an online dating conversation she had with a different guy that randomly knew Brutus, and she contacts him for like a booty call basically, and they hook up.
Booty call, you call the Booty Man.
Yeah, it's actually funny when he's recounting that story because it's like he wasn't going to answer. He's like, yes. He picks up the phone. So they kind of talk a lot about their relationship. This is a lighter episode, another one that, I mean, he went through some shit, don't get me wrong, just like a lot of guys do, but seems okay now, seems to be happy. It's not one of those like, my God, just the same horrible, depressing ending.
I remember going through it, or it happening at the time, because I remember I had actually found out before, like they talked about it on TV and stuff,
Oh, you're talking the injury, you mean?
Yeah, so I
The
remember that being,
parasailing injury,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
getting ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We can jump around. It doesn't matter. But yeah, they run down like his Hogan training with Hiro Matsuda and Hogan helping Brutus break in, both living in a van in Pensacola. Their tag teams, the Boulder Brothers tag gimmick, Dizzy Hogan, which I'm surprised they didn't just like, hey, just be Dizzy Hogan again. You know? Linda McMahon initially kind of coming up with the Brutus Beefcake gimmick, and surprisingly, him not taking to it. Which, again, at that point, like almost everybody was gimmicked up somehow. So,
No, he didn't have a problem with the Brutus beef. It was the barber one where he flipped out.
Yeah, the barber, yeah, because it was like
because the beefcake, Linda came up with Brutus Beefcake. The barber was obviously a Vince thing later, many years later.
Yeah, and I don't know, like he kind of came around when the whole sleeper hold and head shave thing came in. I always had that issue though, because it's like it's not like he was shaving a guy's head every time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, well, I don't know. I wasn't as big of a fan as you were, but
well, oh god damn it, Dan always needs it immediately. That's because you were building to it. You took a little off the jobbers, then the big shave you had to build up to
it. Yeah, okay, that's fine, but I'm just saying he could have shaved more heads. I was a kid, Tad. I'm sorry. I
well,
wanted
you
to
didn't know
see
in the
people
back he
get
was
their
shaving
heads
balls. He taught Judy how to do it.
Yeah, you can see that WCW moment. Like he just like walks in the locker and you got Buff bent over. He's like, "Hey, Beefcake, can you help me? I got a few stray hairs down there."
Oh, but should have never said that on TV. Oh wait, no, who he didn't say it. I can't remember who added him.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
I already forgot who walked in on him.
I can't recall now who actually. Oh, Slick. The referee, Mark Slick Johnson.
Okay, I was like, I don't remember Slick. Yes, not the Jive Soul Bro. Understood.
he just like bursts in with the song playing, and immediately just like the music stops and he just like backs out of the room.
You know that is my favorite WWE theme song and music video off the Pile Driver.
Oh fuck yeah, Slick was the man. So yeah, obviously that gets over huge, and
I was the right age though. You have to like that was, yeah, I was like 10.
No, I get it. There's like certain people that connect with you, like Coco Beware connected with me. I really liked Coco Beware for whatever reason, just something the bird and everything.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
and he was very good in the ring.
Yeah, High Energy was an awesome team.
Fuck yeah. Like most wrestlers, he starts talking about how he was supposed to get the Intercontinental title and like all this. So who knows whether that was the case. Then we get in.
I've heard that from day one that
yeah,
the accident, and then not the same as the Benoit thing, but similar thing. A little bit of a detour on what was supposed to happen.
He really only had to be decent. I mean, he was politically connected with the right people.
Yeah,
he had a great gimmick. He looked fantastic. He's not the worst of the worst. I mean, there were a lot of guys. Honky Tonk Man, that's a good example of a guy who had a gimmick that really took him a lot further than he would have gotten otherwise. Because not a great in-ring worker.
That was another guy he was more gimmick, I think.
But yeah, so we get to the accident, which it doesn't sound like that awful on paper to be fucked up that bad, but yeah, just he ate those knees to the face, got severely fucked up. And they did track down the doctor, the plastic surgeon that reconstructed his face and everything, and 16-hour surgery. Like, there's a lot of things in wrestling that get that they do a lot of fuckery to sort of explain something. I never realized how badly he was hurt. I knew
Oh,
it
I remember.
wasn't a Shawn Michaels getting beaten up in a bar kind of thing that they were, doing, but uh, I had no idea it was that bad.
Yeah,
And
that's I had the inside scoop on it. I can't remember who my uncle knew, but I remember getting the information before it was like
uh,
WWE. It probably was like weeks and weeks later before they even acknowledged it.
yeah,
Well, I mean, that was
yeah,
back when they were taped and they were like a month out on all their tapings.
yeah, and it shows what say what you will about Hogan. He's a good friend, leaving his pregnant wife at the time and going to kind of help out and hang
I
out with Beefcake. That's
Well, he knew it was going to be a shitty kid, so he was like, "I'm out." Or which one
yeah,
was it? Was it Nick? Fuck that guy. No.
probably would have been Nick at that point. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I could just tell he's gonna be a little bastard, brother. He's gonna cost me a lot of money. Uh, his eyeball falling out. That was wow.
I'm not going to say anything. 'Cause this isn't going to give anything away. I watched this immediately after my movies yesterday, so all I
Uh,
could think of was a scene in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey when they're talking about the face.
oh yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, well, it works." So I'm sure it wasn't that far off.
You can just see it's okay, brother. We'll set up a feud with the Undertaker.
I love when they're talking about Sherry Martel coming in.
Walking in and then freaking out and throwing the flowers and teddy bear.
But at least they made me laugh.
He just goes in, you'll be the zombie, brother. It's like, you're back from the dead. You'll stab him with the shears.
Yeah, I never thought he was gonna work again, like in a match.
No,
But
and that's tough. That's a tough dude to be able to come back from that. I mean,
I do remember he always had a different look when he came back. You could tell like something had happened. But I mean, look at that fabulous mullet he had during his barbershop run.
oh
But I
yeah.
mean, even when he wasn't working, I mean, he's arguably in the most famous pro wrestling segment ever.
Yeah.
Well, backstage video. What would you even call that? Show?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
That's like
and
one, yeah.
they made it work. I mean, Hogan getting him those movie gigs, helping him pay what was huge bills, obviously.
Should have hit a Buff. Could have been in
Yeah.
some Sedaris stuff.
And he talks a little bit about the steroid scandal, which always seems to come up, and the prosecution trying to use him to flip on Vince and Hogan and him holding strong, and very passionate about that, I must say. He's kind of a funny, easygoing guy, but you could tell like there was some pride there, and sticking with him through that scandal. And they run down. It wasn't the end for him. The WrestleMania tag match with Money Inc. And
It's funny. I didn't like when they were together, Hogan and Beefcake. Never did. It wasn't even because, like, I didn't even understand.
well,
They were like, it was
Hogan
so
was
political.
so far up there
I
at
get
that
that, but
point.
I
It
think
was
also I
like,
didn't really like Hogan at that point. So I was like, I'd rather just I would have. I get why they did a tag team now as an adult, but I was like, I'd rather
it felt like a mid-card guy at that point. I mean, look, Brutus at his peak was up there. I mean, he was super over. Anything in like WCW or beyond, it did feel like he was just dragging his buddy along.
But I'll give him that SummerSlam match because it was a huge deal for him to actually work a match again. So
Yeah.
Was that SummerSlam or was that WrestleMania?
No, that was
No,
SummerSlam. I'm sorry, I'm bunching some shit together.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while.
Yeah, the barbershop at WrestleMania 8 angle, and yeah, SummerSlam. But yeah, then they kind of run down the many gimmicks that he had: the Butcher, the Man with No Name, Zodiac, Booty Man, the Disciple, just plain old Ed Leslie at one point again. And I thought it was funny the bit where Brian Knobbs laughs about him comparing himself to Mel Gibson. It's like, you didn't get any of those over.
Okay, I will tell you this. This is a Todd fact you probably don't know. Not the first, but the second. I didn't order like NWA, WCW pay-per-views because I was lucky to get one a month. You know what I mean? Or one whenever they were. Every quarter, I believe it was then.
Yeah.
But the two I had to get was, I can't remember what it was now. I think it was Great American Bash 88 or whatever, because Jake the Snake was on it. It was his first match after he left. And was it the Butcher at that point versus Hogan when he came? Those were like, that's something. Even then, I wanted to see that match because I was a Beefcake fan.
Yeah. And you know, I'll give you the Booty Man. I do feel like the Booty Man, actually, and that might have had more to do with Kimberly Page.
Oh no, it absolutely did. I mean, but the act was basic. It was kind of an extension of Beefcake with the booty gimmick.
Yeah.
I was always kind of bummed when that one like ended, because that was like the crowd was into it. I mean, you throw some ass and titties out, the crowd gets excited. It was just.
Yeah,
could have got a little more money out of it.
Yeah. I mean, he was at the bottom of the card at that point, and I mean, hey, he got ripped for the Disciple. At that point, he was not moving so great anymore, and it showed. But hey, respect for that. And it's sad to see that he and Hogan, I guess, are not entirely cool. I thought the Hall of Fame induction fixed a lot of that, but I guess not.
Okay, I'm Team Beefcake on this, and I'll tell you why. It's something to do with the women, and it was basically Beefcake was in the position of, well, I get to choose my friend or my wife.
I think the wife wanted him to get more money for that Hogan and Friends tour, is what was kind of implied.
So that was, but I mean,
and then it becomes that, well, I've done all of this for you kind of shit at that point. Hogan wasn't,
it's like, I didn't live for you, motherfucker. I fucking had your back.
Yeah. I get it. It's one of those things where it just feels like just one short, awkward conversation and it'd be fine. But
you know what? Here's my thing. Because I've had a similar situation with a friend. If Hogan is, I feel like this is all on Hogan. I'll just say that.
Okay, you're Team Beefcake. I understand.
Well, yeah, and it's because I feel like the situation is, it's like your wife or me. That's the way it feels like. And if that's your friend, he shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you gotta find, and I mean, same thing on the wife front. Like
and that's why I'm Team Beefcake.
Wife, girlfriend. Your friends aren't always gonna mesh with your home life. They don't need to. You can have separate things. I've had that come up a few times where it's just like, it's like, well, I don't like him. And it's like, okay, you don't have to. Like, it's not, I'm probably not going to like all of your friends. And that's fine. It's not a big deal.
But that's different because they don't like all their friends either.
Yeah.
Fuck that bitch.
Let's just rant about women for the rest of this episode.
I'm actually not ranting. I'm on the woman's side on this one.
Well, there you go. You're improving, Todd. You're 2024 Todd. So I mean, they go over some of his struggles, having to move back to Boston to be with this kid, which he obviously hated. He's a Florida beach guy, and that cocaine incident, which is kind of funny now in retrospect. But you know what? Ends up love of his life, reconnecting, and overall seems to be doing good now. He's doing conventions,
He misses Hogan, you can tell.
Yeah, I don't know. When you get towards especially as pro wrestlers, the twilight years of your life, and you just never know. It's kind of a shame they can't just have that difficult conversation and move past it. But that's life. That's life, and that kind of brings us to the end of the episode. But overall, uplifting.
Yeah, I do. But even with that, I don't. It still feels like a dark side of the ring because there's a dark tale in there. But he overcame, that. Like, I remember. Like, there was a lot of doubt if he was going to make it out of that. I mean, it was bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I remember that being like really pushed, and it was
And then
kind of
Little
cool.
Dan's like, this is Angle's stupid. I don't believe this shit.
Even back then, it's a work.
It's a
It's a
word.
work, Dad. You're so fucking gullible. But yeah, no, this one was happy. So
Yeah,
I guess
I'm glad. Like, I mean, as a worker, I mean, Beefcake's, you know, nowhere near anyone's top 10, but he was a childhood favorite. I mean, I had a weird mix. Like, I mostly mid carders, him, Jake, Perfect. I mean, Sean.
mhm.
It is like, yeah.
It's like I was into Hogan to a degree. It was hard not to be, but he was never like my favorite. Just the guy, say
Yeah,
your
no,
prayers, eat your vitamins. I always
you,
appreciated the
you,
heel or somebody who had a little bit of an edge.
you know, when I was like, yeah, fuck this guy. When he couldn't beat that piece of shit, that stinky warrior.
Warrior, I always thought was kind of goofy. Like I never,
yeah, fuck that guy.
I just never like he never got me emotionally invested. I get why he was popular because he looked great and he was like a
I bet those two told each other the best jokes though.
But yeah, so that kind of brings us to the end of these 2 episodes. And guys, in just about 12 minutes or so, we're going to be live with Flesh Wound Horror. We hope you jump over. This could be our most stacked episode of the year as far as reviews go, because we've got all big reviews, I would say.
Yeah, I know. I made our main photo the one I felt like had the strongest artwork. I was like, these are all like any other show, like every one of those movies could have been like our big featured one.
Yeah, because they all have buzz behind them, and we'll see. I'm kind of curious to see everybody's opinions on them. So if you're in the chat, let us know. I know maybe you didn't see all of them like us, but whatever you've seen, throw out your opinions, because we got Ghostbusters, we've got Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, Immaculate, Sting, You'll Never Find Me, the Shudder original, and I know I'm missing something here, but did I do them all? No, Late Night with the Devil. There you go.
I knew you were gonna get it. It was coming.
Yes. So yeah, so it'll be a big one. And in closing, if any of you are in Nashville at the Full Moon Horror Tattoo Convention, say hi. I'll be walking around. I know there's some other podcasters that are going to be there. Not as much as the last Scarefest meetup, but there's still a good chunk of us there. So you see us, come say hi. Free photos.
If you get an RKO out of nowhere on Dan and film it, I'll give you a like.
I'm very good at blocking that move, Tad.
But if it's out of nowhere, you wouldn't know it was coming.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like I could just like throw you off.
Okay, so Dan isn't fighting this, so that stands. If you can RKO him out of nowhere and get his hat, I'll give you a like.
Yeah, so let's have a.
I'll put the bounty on at the end of the next show, so stay tuned. All right, we should get out of here and prep.
All right, guys, we will see you in 10 minutes. Flesh Wound Horror Live, Patreon, Discord link in the comments, all that good stuff. We will see you over there in just 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, and check out UEW on Stream XPW.
Yes,
and check out XPW in general. There's a pay-per-view April 13th. Yeah. XPW returns to LA for Baptized in Blood 4. I'm super excited. Old school name. It's supposed to be super cool. Yeah, there you go. So
also our Kruger is coming for Mosh Pit Mike in the no ropes barbed wire match on April.
That's 27th. Actually going to be what we're going to play as we go out. So perfect.
There you go. So watch this awesome hype vid.
And see you in 10 minutes.
Come again hard.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, Kruger. Here's your promo to make up for Dan's disgusting words.